keep sitting here. Good evening. Thank you all for joining us this evening. I'm going to step on this cord and break it, so I'm going to move that out of the way. My name is Jeremy Troche, one of the counselors here at Claremont High School. We want to thank you for coming and joining us this evening. Tonight, we're going to be talking about prepping for college application. So we have a lot to cover. We're going to go through this pretty quickly. It's a ton of information. The slides are available on the website. The recording of tonight will be available on the website as well. So that should be up probably within the next hour after we finish presenting. So we're going to go ahead and jump right in. I want to first introduce my team. So like I said, my name is Jeremy Troche, one of the counselors here. Also presenting tonight is going to be Miss Evelyn Diaz. She'll be joining me in just a little bit. And then the rest of our counseling team. As seniors, I'm hoping by now you as parents know who your student's counselor is. But if you don't, it's done by last name and we're listed up here on the board. All right, let's talk about getting started. And we are going to go over this with your freshmen, with your seniors. Oh, my head is on the wrong place today. On Friday. So they're going to get a lot of the same information in a condensed version on Friday in their English class. That will also be recorded. I know some of our students don't have English classes as seniors right now. That will be recorded and also posted on our website Friday evening. The first thing I want to talk about is making sure that our students are checking their email accounts. So college's primary method of communication with students is through email. Now, some of our students will use their Claremont Unified School District email, but most of our students in Claremont Unified actually don't check their CUSD emails. And so we recommend they actually use a dedicated college email account. So get a Gmail account that is dedicated for their college emails. One of the problems we see with students is when they don't check their emails on a weekly basis and colleges request something from them, they actually can lose their admissions opportunities based upon their delay in responses. So they should be getting an appropriately named email address. And I know most of you know what I mean by that, but some of our students like to be creative in their email addresses. Don't do that for colleges. firstname.lastname@gmail.com works perfectly. Throw a couple numbers in there and you're golden, okay? But they need to be appropriately named and they need to be checked regularly. And I mean at least once a week. What will happen in the springtime is colleges will request additional documentation, often transcripts or other pieces of information they want verification on, and students will have a short period of time to respond to that. It's usually about 2 weeks. So if you're not checking your email for 2 whole weeks and that you get an email and you miss that, they will pull your admissions file and you will no longer be considered for admissions. So we'll be mentioning this again on Friday when we talk with students, but you as parents, make sure your students have an email address dedicated for their colleges. Okay, you'll be using your unofficial transcript. So students will get a copy of their unofficial transcript. That is going to be used for Cal State, UCs, and many of your private schools to enter your academic history into their system. Yes, they're going to get transcripts from us as counselors directly to the colleges, but colleges will also want to see self-reported grades in their system. Again, we'll work with students on how to go through that, and we'll actually go into detail a little bit on that for the Cal States and UCs later in this presentation. The last thing on here is being organized. Again, going back to that email issue, students, if you miss deadlines, you will not be accepted into school. So staying organized, knowing when those deadlines are, is going to be really critically important in this entire process. All right, I want to briefly talk about our SchoolLinks program. So SchoolLinks is the way that we communicate with colleges. So everything we do as counselors, letters of recommendation, transcripts, all of that information is going to be digitally sent through SchoolLinks. Students need to be looking at SchoolLinks on a regular basis. Every one of their colleges needs to be listed in SchoolLinks. We will have all of our students go to see our Career Center and go through a SchoolLinks training where they will learn how to upload all of their schools into SchoolLinks and ensure that all of their documents are appropriately sent to the schools. We will help them with this through the process. Just know that's going to be a big part of their college application process. Okay, when students are in SchoolLinks, they will be connecting their Common App account if they're applying to private schools. They'll also be signing something called a FERPA waiver. That is what allows us to send their transcripts and their data to the colleges. Without that waiver, we can't send that. We will walk them through that entire process and show them exactly what they need to do in that process, okay? Letters of recommendation, we're going to go over a little bit later, but that will also be found in SchoolLinks, and those will also be sent through SchoolLinks. Students who add colleges after the September 22nd letter rec deadlines will need to add those schools in SchoolLinks and tell the counselors. Again, we're going to go over that a little bit later in more detail. Okay, let me keep going. I want to talk about finding a balanced list and what this means. So every year, springtime rolls around, we're in March, students start getting responses back. And every year, we have students who get denial, I'm seeing some head nodding, denial, and they apply to 15 colleges, get accepted to 1. That is because they did not have a balanced list going into that. So what does a balanced list mean? A balanced list is taking a look at all the schools they're applying to and ensuring they have schools where they are above the average admissions, meaning their GPA, their test scores are above their averages. We consider that to be called a safety school or a likely school, depending on your terminology. We also want to see students having a good group of schools within their averages. So if their average GPA is a 4.1, that's where your student's at. That's a good fit school. And then we also want to see students who have schools where they are below the averages. These are called reach schools. I always tell students, if you don't get denied to a college, you didn't do it right. Because we want students to reach. We want students to push themselves beyond maybe what they think they can get into. However, I don't want to see every single school as a reach school, because in the end, that's a lot of denial letters for your student in March, and that is not a fun place to be. Okay? When we talk about balanced list, I also want to focus in on those schools that we consider safety schools should be schools that our students really are willing to attend. So if a student puts a school on there because it's a safety school and not because they're actually interested in attending there, that's actually not a good safety school, because that may be the school they get into, and if that school is something they're not interested in, that's going to put them at a place where they're having to make really hard decisions, and maybe they're not going to get something they actually want. Does that make sense? Okay. And again, be sure you're listing all the colleges and SchoolLinks. That's really more for the students. All right, letters of recommendation. So students who require letters of recommendation, these are my students who are applying almost exclusively to private schools, some out-of-state public schools as well. Letters of recommendation are required by most private schools. These letters of recommendation are going to come typically from 2 places. It's going to be usually the counselor. We will always write a letter of recommendation for students for almost every private school. And then going to be 1 or 2 teachers. In certain instances, schools will request letters of recommendation from clergy members, pastors, those kinds of people. They also can accept letters of recommendation from community members. So letters of recommendation is a chance for your student to be represented by somebody outside of their family and be able to talk about some of your students' strengths and some of your students' desires and their experiences. These letters of recommendation are really important for your students, okay? We as counselors know our students, I think, pretty well here at Claremont High School. We're very fortunate to have an amazing team who really invests in our students. However, I think all my fellow counselors would agree that we don't know any of our students well enough to write a good recommendation. And I know one family in here who I know the students extremely well, and I still don't know them well enough to write a letter of recommendation, okay? That's just the reality. And so what we ask our students to do is complete a counselor questionnaire, which we will talk about in a little bit. Actually, is that the next? I'll come back to the teacher one. We ask our students to complete a counselor questionnaire. It's 22 questions of information that helps me write a really good letter of recommendation. Give you context. Your student will spend 2 or 3 hours on this, maybe a little bit more. I will spend at least 2 hours on your student's letter recommendation. That's how much time each one of us put into this. On average, we will write anywhere on the low side. I think the lowest I've had is 30, and my typical is 60 letters a year is what I'm writing. We really take this seriously because outside of the students' essays, their test scores, the next most important thing is actually the letter that the counselors in this room will write for your students. So it's really important your students take the time on these letters of recommendation, the materials for that, so that we can actually spend the time and write really good letters for your students, okay? All of this information students will get on Friday, and they will also get this fancy little sheet that has QR codes that leads it directly to them, so it's kind of a no-brainer, I promise you. Step by step, we'll walk them through the process. That'll come out on Friday when we meet with them. Teachers will also write letters of recommendation. There is a separate form for teachers that students will complete. Again, this is on the CHS website. It's in schooling. It's in both places. And they will get a direct link to it when we see them on Friday. All the letter recommendation materials for both teachers and for counselors are due on the 22nd of September. That may seem like a really short time frame. Go back to what I said about earlier. I'm spending 2 hours on average per student letter of recommendation. And I've got 60 to write. Many of those are going to be November 1st. We're going to talk about that in a second. That means I have to have that early enough where I can get all those done in time. All right, let me keep going here. There we go. Some things that are coming up, and there will be a slide on this that actually condenses it a little bit better than this. We will have financial aid night coming up on October 20th. Please mark that on your calendars. We've had this speaker the last 2 years. She is amazing. She's going to give you a much deeper concept of what financial aid options are out there. So don't miss that one. College Fair is going to be October 16th. This is an in-person event that happens in our West Gym, where colleges come out and students get a chance to actually talk with college representatives. In addition to that stuff, we as counselors, every Tuesday and Thursday starting in October, will be available in the library to help students complete their applications. We really encourage students to take advantage of this. We have been doing this for years, and we kind of know the little tips and tricks to help students get through this process. So when we get to October, encourage your students to come see us. Again, we'll talk about that in a little bit more detail in a second here. Last thing on this slide is our college rep visits. We have on a regular basis representatives from college who come into our library and actually meet with students in small groups to give them more information about their schools. It's a great opportunity to explore new schools. All right. Starting next week, we will be in credit checks. This is going to be a time when your counselor is going to sit down individually with your student, take a look at their credits, and make sure that they're on track to graduate. In addition to that, we do a very brief little bit of planning with them for colleges, checking in what they need. The important stuff for us is when we meet with them, we're taking notes. I want to know if your kid is looking at community college. I want to know if your kid's looking at a UC. And as things come up, we will send them out to those students based upon that information. So when they meet with us, it's really important we get a good concept of where they're applying to, because that enables us to send the right information to your student down the road. All right, and then I already mentioned the school links training coming up. All right, let's talk about Common App. So if your student is applying to private schools, the most common application type is the Common App. It covers about 1,100 schools nationwide. It is one application. Student fills it out one time, writes that one essay, and then they can resubmit it to all these different schools. You can add up to 20 schools within the Common application. There are some additional supplemental essays that individual schools want, but generally speaking, this is the easiest way to apply to private schools. There are also some out-of-state public schools that will use the Common App as well. Sorry about that. I already mentioned this. It's one essay, about 650 words, and I will tell you this is probably the most difficult part about the application process, are the essays. And it's not the 650 words as meeting enough. It's usually for my students to cut it down to 650 words. That's actually really hard to be succinct when you're trying to answer a question about yourself, and you're trying to answer that question in a very influential way to get yourself admitted. This is the difficult part, is cutting down that essay 650 words. Really recommend students start looking at those things now. When we come in on Friday to meet with your students in their classroom, they will again get that little sheet of paper that will have a direct link to the Common App question they can start working on immediately. All right, let me keep going here. I want to talk about the different ways you can apply to private schools. So there's essentially 4 different areas, or 4 different application methods that you can use when you're applying to private school. And this is really about the timelines. So you have an early timeline and you have a regular timeline. Your early timeline is going to be the first two, early decision and early action. These are going to have deadlines of November 1st and November 15th. It depends on the school. They have different times, but generally speaking, it's either November 1st or November 15th for early decision, early action. They're both similar in that you apply early, and the benefit of applying early is you get to know early. Typically in December is when they find out. Here's the difference. Your early decision is what we call binding. So binding means once a student applies early decision, they're only allowed to apply to one early school then. In addition to the limitation on the number of schools they apply to early, if they are accepted, they have to rescind every additional application, and they are guaranteeing that their attendance is going to be at that school. The only exception to that if there is extreme financial hardship. Now, the way colleges define extreme financial hardship is going to be different than the way we would define it here, because they are actually really restrictive on that. So students applying early decision. This is a very small select number of students. This would be for my students who they know exactly where they want to go to. They've gone there, they've thought about this, they've visited the place, they might have already interviewed with a staff member there. They know where they want to be, and there's no other school for them. That's the early decision student, okay? In order for a student to apply early decision, you as the parent have to sign off on it, and so do I as the counselor. And I will interview your student and ask them why they want to apply early decision, because that's part of the process for that. Does that make sense? Your other early option is going to be early action. Now, early action is actually going to be a good chunk of our students. In fact, I would say out of all of our college applications, at least 50% of our students applying to a four-year college are going to apply early action. This is very common. Okay. Again, like early decision, you apply early, you get to know early. The difference is it is not binding, meaning you apply early, you still have all the other applications that you can choose from. All the other colleges you get accepted to, you can still choose from them. So this is the common one for our students to apply. There's a third subcategory that kind of hits under this early action, and that's called restrictive early action. This is only a handful of schools that will do this, but just be aware if you're going to apply to a school and it says REA, or restrictive early action, what that means is, while it's not binding, you cannot apply to any other school's early action. That's the restrictive part of it. So it's kind of a hybrid between early decision and early action. Then you have your regular decision. Regular decision deadlines are going to be typically anywhere from December 1st at the very earliest, all the way up into March. Okay, this is kind of your standard pool of students. So we will have a lot of students who apply early action and then wait to apply to additional schools as regular decision. And they might do this because they know from their early action that, hey, I got into my number one school, now I don't need to apply to those other schools. Or I didn't get in, now I'm going to add some more applications. So this is the regular decision pool. The last category on here is going to be rolling decision. So rolling decision is for our less competitive schools. These are schools where you apply, and then typically within 2 to 3 weeks, you actually get an admissions answer. And some of those have already started sending admissions. Some of your students may have even started the application and may even have gotten admissions already for some of those rolling actions or rolling decision schools. Okay? Let's keep going here. Let's talk about private application tips. You're going to see this on every one of our tip sheets. The first thing is to start early. This is one of those things you don't want to wait until the end on. Students in the room, this will be stressful for you. Do not wait until the last minute. Trust me on this one. You need to make sure you're reporting all of your college prep classes. When you are reporting your grades, you need to report everything that's on there. Be very aware of your deadlines. Okay, again, I mentioned earlier, colleges are looking for reasons to say no right now, especially your UCs and Cal States. A lot of private schools that are more impacted, they're looking for reasons right now to say no. Deadlines are one of those reasons. It's not like Claremont High School where if you turn something late, you get 10% off. No, you don't get accepted if you turn in something late. So make sure you're on time for all of that, okay? Spend quality time working on your counselor questionnaire. Again, this is a significant part of your application for private schools. Students, spend the time, invest the time, answer those questions thoroughly. We spend a lot of time on writing letters for you. The more information you give us, the more evidence I have to support your application. All right. We talked about that. Let's keep going here. Let's talk about essays and interviews. Okay. The essay is going to be one of the most significant parts of your application. This is even more true now than it was 5 years ago pre-COVID, because the essay right now is taking a heavier weight than your SAT scores. Many of these colleges are test optional. We'll talk about that, what that means in a second. But that means your grades and your essays are more important now than they were pre-COVID. The essay needs to be written by the student and from the student perspective. By the student means no ChatGPT. Really don't want to do that, trust me. It also should mean it's not the parent writing it. They want to see an authentic student sample, and they want the students to be authentic in the way they're writing, and they want the student to portray their personality within that essay. This is not the essay you wrote for English class. This is an essay about who you are, and you're telling a story about yourself. So students, as you think about that, you've had great English teachers here. You're going to forget a little bit what they said right now, because this is really about you. And you need to be able to tell it in the first person, and you need to show it as a story. Okay, interviews. Interviews become less common nowadays, but a lot of schools will use alumni interviews, and they'll do them via Zoom or other online type of method. If you're offered a chance to have an interview, take that opportunity. Even if it's a little inconvenient, that actually can make a significant difference in your admissions. A lot of times students who are offered interviews are being considered for admissions, but they may need just a little more information, and that's why they're offering the interview. So students, if you are given the option to interview, you need to take that option. All right, in certain circumstances, especially if a student's applying for like an art program or a film program, they are gonna have to put together a portfolio. If you're looking at that information, come talk with us, we'll help you figure out what you need to do. But that is also some additional requirements that might be there. Okay, let me keep going here. So Common App is the most common private school application. Some schools, like APU, like Georgetown, will have an application separate from Common App. Some schools, like University of La Verne, will have both Common App and their own institutional app. If a school has an institutional app, you have to apply through that school. That's not a problem. We still send documents through school links to them. It is one of those things that you absolutely can do. Some schools, University of La Verne is famous for this, will offer you free application if you use their institutional app, whereas you're paying the Common App fee if you don't. Take advantage of that. If you get a free application, use the free application. Even if you're not using Common App, it's fine. A lot of the information is the exact same. You literally can copy and paste off Common App into the institution app. It's going to be the same information. All right. I'm going to hand this over to Ms. Diaz. She's going to take over the UCs and Cal States.
All right, so to touch on the UC system and their applications are online. Application opened on August 1st. That submission window is October 1st to November 30th. It was mentioned earlier, but our labs in the library starting in October, please. I encourage your students to attend early, just like we've been emphasizing, start early, get that help from your counselors in the library consistently throughout the month. Towards the end, it gets a little bit busier, so the earlier the better. Applications after the 30th are going to be blocked, so again, just be early, get help before that due date. And tips, early. Be honest and thorough through the application. Include all of your A through G courses. Those library, the application labs in the library can help your student. Your counselors can look through, make sure that they're including all the classes they're supposed to, make sure that they're accurate, both by title and grades. Make sure that information regarding the parental income is as most accurate as can be. Use a word processor for those personal insight questions. There's a tutorial for tips on those PIQs as well. And make sure that you're saving your work consistently to make sure that nothing gets lost. And then again, just always check with your counselor, make sure that everything on that application is accurate before submitting. For CSU, very similar, application is online. That application submission window is the same from October 1st to the 30th. So again, checking in with counselors during October in the library, make sure that all information, that requirements for both UC and CSUs are accurate. Same thing, after November 30th, they're going to be blocked. Make sure that you're checking your CSU and UC portals often. Schools may communicate any updates through those portals as well as through email. So just make sure students are checking their portals often and consistently. CSU applications, again, just stressing to start very early, honest and thorough. Make sure you're including all of your courses, and counselors are a resource to you to make sure that those courses are accurate, to make sure that they're double checked. Same thing, make sure all information is as accurate as can be. Save often as you're working on it. Research your schools of interest for any majors. I would also research to make sure the major you're interested in, if they're impacted or not. The more impacted a major, the more competitive it will be to get accepted into that college. So just the more information you have about the school as well as the major is very important. So for CSU, UC, CSU submission must. Again, those labs during October are really, really, really important. Counselors are there as a resource. Use your resources. Any questions, double checking information. It's better safe than sorry. Once those applications are in, it's really hard to change information, if not impossible. So make sure that a counselor is checking the progress throughout. Make sure that that's all accurate before you submit. And then again, just check your emails, portals weekly. Make sure that you're not missing any important information. And again, don't be afraid to ask for help. For our counselors, it's our job to help you. Make sure that everything goes well and that everything is accurate and submitted on time. EOP, our Educational Opportunity Program, is offered at most UCs, CSUs, and our community colleges. It provides assistance through mentorship, academic assistance, financial assistance, and they have counseling and advising. Oftentimes, you may have your general counselor, but also, in addition to an EOP counselor, which is the more resources for students to have. Who can apply to this program? So first-generation college students and or from low-income or educationally disadvantaged backgrounds. That EOP will be embedded into the CSU and UC application. So you're going to see a section where it'll ask specifically about the EOP in those applications. So fees and fee waivers. Application fees are per campus. For CSUs, it'll be $70, and for UC, it'll be $80. For private schools, price may vary. If you're financially eligible, there will be a fee waiver on the Common App. Through Schools Link, counselors will receive that so that they can sign off on that approval for the fee waiver. Fee waivers for UCs and CSU will be, again, embedded. There will be a section on that application that you can fill out. Just your information for family size and income, make sure it's the most accurate. And EOP, again, it's embedded into those applications. Just have your student fill out if they're interested in the program to make sure that they're eligible or to get more information. Our Western Undergraduate Exchange, that is for schools or programs outside of the region where there is a reduced tuition rate. Instead of paying out-of-state tuition, they'll pay the in-state tuition plus half of the in-state tuition. So that's a hefty discount off the out-of-state tuition that students would receive. Spots are limited, so if your student is interested in an out-of-state school, double check on the website listed up here to make sure that the school they're interested in as well as their major is a part of the program to make sure that they're eligible. And again, just spots are limited, so I would research it early and apply early. HBCUs are historically Black colleges and universities. There are 101 in the US, both public and private, primarily serving African American communities, and as well as Hispanic serving institutions. These are institutions that serve 25% or more undergraduate Hispanic full-time students. Admission tests, so these will be SAT, ACTs. Make sure that all schools you're applying to, you're double checking the requirements. Most UCs, CSUs will be test optional, but not all schools. Some schools may require it, if not strongly encourage it, especially those out-of-state schools. Definitely make sure what tests are required for their application. If you want to take the SAT or the ACT and still report those scores, you can absolutely still do so, even if it's optional. You can still include those into your application. If you would like to test this fall, the link to the SAT and ACT are on our CHS website under the counseling page. We do not send those unofficial or official scores. Make sure that your student works with that agency to send the scores to the schools that they are interested in attending. Transcripts. So counselors are going to review the unofficial transcripts during the fall credit checks with your seniors. That will take place from September 8th to the 16th throughout. If your student is missed, they'll be met with. So this is a great point to check, make sure that grades, course titles, and everything is accurate for those applications. The UC-CSU applications don't require those transcripts to be submitted initially. Those will be sent out later on. For private colleges, official transcripts will be sent with the counselor letter of rec, the mid-year reports. And for out-of-state colleges, just make sure your student lets us know what schools they're interested in attending so that those transcripts can be sent. For transcripts, it is a one-time $20 fee that can be used multiple times. So it's one time $20, and you can request transcripts for any number of schools that your student is interested in. They can be purchased through the ASB store here on campus. If you have taken a course at another school or another college, make sure that you request a transcript from that school. So for example, any student with dual enrollment through Citrus College, make sure you communicate with Citrus College to have Citrus send that transcript to the school of attendance. And when will you start hearing back after those applications are submitted? For any early action or early decisions, you can hear as early as December. Regular decisions, usually around March. It's a little bit estimated, but give or take, those are the timeframes. December for any early decision, early action, and then March for any regular decisions. I'm going to go back to Mr. Troche.
All right, I'm just taking a look at the time here. I'm going to keep burning through this. We're up against the freshman parent meeting after this. So community college options. So let me start off with this. Claremont High School has a partnership with Citrus College. So if your students are at Claremont High School, I'm sure many of them have taken some of our dual enrollment classes. Those are through Citrus College. While there's 112 community colleges in the state of California, our partner institution is Citrus College. So when students say, hey, I'm thinking about community college, either as their main plan or maybe even as one of their safety schools, we will always recommend Citrus College. Part of our partnership is our students gain access to something called the Early Decision Program. This is a program where students actually get money for free and their tuition's taken care of if they fall through in the program. In addition to that, they are walked through the process of applying all the way from the initial application stage through picking classes. Our students also get priority registration, which means they get to pick their classes before other students. So if your student is looking at community college, even if it's like a, hey, maybe as a safety school, we will always recommend Citrus College as one of our choices for community college. So here's the benefits of community college. Your first 2 years at a community college are significantly less expensive than your first 2 years at a four-year school. 2 years at a community college plus 2 years at a four-year school, and your student has earned their bachelor's degree. If they start at Citrus Community College and transfer to Cal Poly Pomona, their degree says Cal Poly Pomona, not Citrus College. When they get that four-year degree, it's the final institution that awards that. And so it's a way to get through college a little bit cheaper. Here's the other piece of it. It's a way to get through college a little bit faster. So the average graduation rate for a student transferring from a community college to a four-year college is about 4.2 years at a Cal State. If you're going directly to a Cal State, you're looking at a 4.6 years to finish, about half a year more to finish a 4-year degree if you go straight to a Cal State. So not only is it a little less expensive, actually a lot less expensive, it also tends to be a little bit faster for a student to complete the degree. The other piece that our students will use community college for is they'll use it as a way to get into more competitive schools down the road. So if you are a student looking at applying for, one of those easy colleges to get into like UCLA, where the acceptance rate is about 8%, coming out of your high school years, if you start at community college, your acceptance rate goes up significantly. You're talking 24 to 30% to UCLA after community college. Even higher if you're in a program like the honors program. So students who are maybe applying to schools that are really competitive, maybe they don't get in coming directly out of high school, community colleges are a great way to bolster your chances of getting in down the road. Okay, let me keep going here. Community colleges also have athletics programs. So students who are interested in actually playing sports in college, which I'll talk about in just a second in a little more detail. This is another great way to get into more competitive schools when you have 2 more years to mature in your sport. Community colleges, in addition to the academic transfer side, will also have a separate side, which are certificate programs. These are career-focused programs. Some of them are short. Some of them you're looking at a year and you're done. Some of them 18 months. But when those students complete that career program, they are certified to go into the field that they're working in. There's lots of different options out there. Every community college is going to have their separate certificate programs. So if a student's looking at going to something like automotive, Citrus College is a great place to look at that as an option because Citrus College has a partnership with Toyota and Lexus where they become certified mechanics for Toyota and Lexus. Places like RCC, Riverside Community College, we're going to have different certifications with different partners. So each one of these community colleges has these career options available to it, and they're always significantly less expensive than doing something like a trade school. All right, mentioned the Promise program. This is that free tuition for the first year. With us in Citrus College, you gain access to that by doing the early decision program. All right, let's talk about transfer agreements. So one of the benefits when you look at a community colleges, these community colleges in California have set up agreements with our UC and Cal State partners where the classes you take within those categories are guaranteed to transfer admission guarantees. So you're not going to go through your community college, take an English class, and then find out when you transfer UCLA that it doesn't count because you're guaranteed it will transfer based on these agreements. Okay, some of these will also guarantee, things falling on my foot, will guarantee admissions into the schools if you meet the requirements. So if you sign up for a transfer admission guarantee in your first year at community college and you complete that guarantee with the GPA requirement, you're guaranteed spots at some of these top UCs. Not every UC has an agreement with every community college. However, this is a great way, again, to get yourself into higher level schools after community college. Let's see here. I'm going to keep going here. Let's talk athletics. And I'm sorry, I'm going to speed up a little bit because I know I'm going to have freshman parents running in on us in a second here. If your student is an athlete, they need to make sure they're completing the NCAA requirements. Okay, I'm going to tell you right now, we as your counselors have met with your students as juniors, as sophomores. We've asked them, are you an athlete? And we will actually check off whether they're meeting their NCAA requirements. So unless your student all of a sudden this year decides they want to play college athletics, we already know about it, I guarantee it, and we've already talked with them about what they need to do on here. Here's the part that you need to do. As the parent, as a student, you need to make sure you're registered with the NCAA. That's the website up there. By the way, this is linked on the CHS website, so you can find it on there as well. They need to be submitting their transcripts, and that's a request that we will take care of. You can do that in SchoolLinks. You will also request that transcript on NCAA. As long as you've correctly entered Claremont High School as your home high school, we can submit those all electronically. I'm actually going to be in the process of doing that on Monday for one of my senior athletes who has already been committed to a school. So if your student is an athlete, make sure you register with the NCAA. All right, I'm going to keep going here. All right, let's talk about senior grades. So, this is the time of the year when my seniors are fresh, they're excited, senior year is great, they got new classes, they're gonna do great this year. That will last until about November, and the first case of senioritis is gonna kick in, and then they'll realize they messed up and they're gonna get their grades back up before the semester, and then second semester starts and senioritis really kicks in. Here's what I want to make sure you as parents know so that you have a little bit more ammunition to talk with your kids about. Senior grades are really, really important. Okay, there's two things that are going to happen. We will send mid-year transcripts. So after the first semester, if you're applying to private schools, we as counselors will send mid-year transcripts to the schools you applied to. They will see your first semester grades, students. And if those grades are not where they're expected to be, you will either not get your admissions or you'll lose your admissions. We get to the end of your senior year and you start letting those grades slip. Colleges will rescind admissions. Let me talk about what that means. You hit May, colleges have accepted, you have committed yourself to this college and then said no to every place else that you got accepted to. You're now going to the school. June rolls around and you end up with a D inside your senior English class. Well, what happens is that D gets reported on your transcript to those colleges, and those colleges say, yeah, lazy, we don't want you anymore. And they will rescind your admissions. You will get a letter in June saying you no longer will attend UCLA. Good luck. At that point, your only option is going to be community college because all other schools have already accepted their classes and they're already registered. And you have only the option of community college at that point. And here's the hard part. Early decision's over with, so you don't get priority registration, and you are basically begging for classes at that point. Seniors, your grades are important. Do not let it slide even for a moment. All right. Financial aid. I'm not going to go into detail on this because we're going to be going over this again in October, and the person going in detail on this in October is much better at this than any of us are. And so while there's some information up here, I'm going to actually kind of skip over this a little bit, but I do want to highlight one really important thing for you as parents right now. That's actually that fourth line down there, the net price calculator. So what is this? Every college in the United States, if they take federal funds, which is every college in the United States, is required to have on their website the net price calculator. Google search it, USC net price calculator, it's going to pop right up. Okay, what does this do? It's going to take your financial information. So you put in how much you made last year, you put in your family size, you put in the information about you or the student, and it's going to spit back an estimated cost of attendance for you. So when you're looking at these tuition prices of $70,000 a year, that may not actually be what you pay as parents. That's going to depend on your own personal financial information. This is a great way to get a realistic estimate because it's going to take the average of students who are in your financial situation and give you what they're paying. So you're going to really get to see what it's going to likely cost you as a family to send your kid to each one of those schools. I would highly recommend doing this with every school your student's applying to, just to give you a better idea of what that might look like for you as family. All right, let me keep going here. Some upcoming events. I'm going to leave this up here for you to take pictures of. Again, this is on the website. I do want to highlight one really important event here. That's actually the one that's on October 2nd because that's when we start our college application labs. Evelyn mentioned this. I mentioned it. I'm going to mention it again. This is a time where we will sit down with your students one-on-one, go through their applications and help them get it all done. Now, I will tell you, my students who come October 2nd, they're going to get one-on-one time with me. My students who come at the end of November, the week before the deadline for the UC and Cal State apps hits, it's going to be a very large group and we're going to do the best to get to everybody we can. So encourage your students when we get to October to go see the counselor. Go see, say it over and over again. Remind them, set a text reminder to them every single Tuesday and Thursday to come see us during lunch. It's a really great opportunity for us to help your students get everything done. All right, that's it for now. I want to say thank you for joining us. We are backed up against our next presentation, but we really appreciate you. Again, we are here to help your students through this process. Encourage them to come see us. Thank you all.